Welcome to Good Faith Reads. I'm your host, Bruce Scorley, Publications Manager at Good Faith Media. Good Faith Reads is a short podcast released twice a month in which we focus on one of our book authors at Good Faith Media. We published more than 100 titles under our Nurturing Faith book imprint, and we invite you to check them out at goodfaithmedia.org/bookstore. Today's guest is Bob Maddox, author of Jesus of Nazareth and the Kingdom of Weeds in 2 volumes. Bob is joining us from Bethesda, Maryland. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
A standard question we ask authors on Good Faith Reads is this: tell our listeners in one sentence what the book is about.
It is about Jesus of Nazareth, the man full of God who lived and walked, born and had a birthday. And I'm trying to, in that, just to let people understand that this extraordinary man was a man to begin with.
Was there a critical life experience that shaped your need or desire to write a book?
To write a book, I've always liked to write. Since I was in high school and college, liked to write. Along the way, decided for ministry, still writing sermons and all. Started out as a Baptist, writing Sunday school lessons for the Southern Baptist Convention. Did a book of Acts with them. Along the way, I began to say there's more to this Jesus thing, this Jesus event, than I have been getting, that for me personally have been getting. And so I began to explore and push, and actually through the late, great Marcus Borg, who died a few years ago, he wrote many books, including Meeting Jesus Again for the First Time. And I read the book in one sitting, and I think I found Jesus that I had been looking for. Jesus, the man full of God, who made a profound difference in the lives of the people that knew him well, and the echo of what he did and continues to this day. That Jesus spoke to me, and I wanted to let other people know the Jesus that I was writing about.
Bob, tell us why you wrote a second volume in what is now a series of books.
Well, it started out, I started writing the book 25, 30 years ago. And when I first finished it, it was 1,000 pages, and I figured that nobody could do that. And then I got it down to 600 pages. And by then, John Pierce had already published one of my books, and I kept writing, and he said, let's look at it. And it was just too big for you guys to handle it. Together, we said, let's do it in 2. And so it broke evenly. The first volume is Jesus getting started. And I use, I think, a well-tutored imagination. I'm a theologian. I'm a historian. I'm a nutcake on all of that stuff. So I imagined Jesus growing up. And then the second volume is the ministry of Jesus. And I had an unusual take on that. Along the way, he went to Egypt to study medicine. I'm persuaded that he knew a lot about medicine. Where does one go to study medicine? In those days, you went to Alexandria, Egypt. Echo of that is the book of Matthew, when the angel came and said, run, Herod's going to kill you. And they went to Egypt. So all of that plays into there. So Jesus comes back to his homeland under the powerful persuasion of John the Baptist, who in the Luke version is a cousin, distant cousin. And that's when he encounters a world upside down, a world fraught with violence by the Romans, people and families being torn apart, crucified right and left. And so he was sort of thrust into the middle of all that chaos and began to discover that he had unusual gifts of, number one, of healing, because he's trained. And then he had come to his own understanding of the ancient Jewish religion, the texts and all. So the ministry unfolds. So the second book is the ministry, the ministry, and tragically the death of Jesus.
We'll be right back with more of Good Faith Reads.
I'm Jenna.
I'm Ashley, and we are Reverends.
Revs on the road. Hop in the car with us and come along for the ride.
As we step out of the pulpit and see what God is up to in the world.
We're not leaving the church.
We're just finding it in all kinds of beautiful places.
Revs on the Road, a podcast from Good Faith Media. We travel the country.
From the comfort of our place in Dallas for now.
And catch up with beautiful people doing God's work. Advocating for disability rights,
healing from church hurt and spiritual abuse,
promoting mental health and the power of community,
integrating spirituality and art,
working for racial justice,
and so much more.
We've got red light rants, pit stops, and detours.
Faith is a journey, and we're on it.
So ride along with us.
The Revs.
On Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Revs on the Road. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Ashley. We're Revs on the Road,
a podcast from Good Faith Media. Learn more at goodfaithmedia.org.
Welcome back to Good Faith Reads. Today we're joined remotely by Bob Maddox, author of the Good Faith Media book, Jesus of Nazareth and the Kingdom of Weeds, Book 1 and Book 2. I'm Bruce Scorley, Publications Manager of Good Faith Media. Bob, could you tell us about your writing process?
I started the book many, many years ago. Well, let me back up and say, when I was a Baptist preacher in Georgia, a long, long time ago, I decided that I needed to write the story between the lines in the New Testament of Jesus. And I made a stab at it, but a lot of stuff happened and I didn't ever finish it. So in 1992, after an interesting career with Jimmy Carter and religious liberty and all, I became pastor again of a Baptist church. And that's when I discovered the Borg book, which spoke to me and evidently to a lot of people because it was a huge religious bestseller. So I just started using my imagination, depending heavily on the gospel texts, but also knowing that those are not designed to be pure history or biography. Then I began to read widely archaeology and the Jesus of history and all that. So it just took flight. And then suddenly characters that I had never met before began to emerge. Joseph and Mary and Nicodemus and all kind of characters like that we meet in the Gospels, but often taking, I hope, very careful and for me, a very faithful rendering or take on a lot of those characters. The book is not in any sense a takedown of Jesus. You know, it's to fill in the blanks. I tease my friends, everything that you always wanted to know about Jesus but couldn't figure out, read my two books.
Did you set weekly goals or give yourself daily word count mandates during the process of writing?
No, I just every morning early for years, got up early, sat with an evolution of equipment as you would expect, and started writing and wrote and studied and read widely and wrote. And like I said, when I finished it, the first time is not quite accurate, but maybe finished it about the 10th time, it was just too big. And again, I had a weekend with Marcus Borg, and he said, do it, but it's way, way, way too big. So I began to, cutting it, which is like cutting off your arm when all this gorgeous writing and beautiful ideas that you had, you have to start cutting them away. So I did, and it got it down to about, 600 pages, manuscript pages. But then your folks said, still, that is a bit big for us. And so that's when we went to the 2 volumes. But like I said, the way I wrote the book, it split evenly between the getting started, the family moving from Bethlehem to Nazareth and all of that. And then the supposition is that Joseph died along the way, and I had him crucified. He got caught up in a melee with Roman soldiers and peasants and lost his life. So all of that is formative. And so all kind of characters, John the Baptist and Peter and Judas and Mary Magdalene, who was in love with Jesus. And so it was great fun as well as exciting for all of these new people, for me to meet all these new people.
An important note to all of our listeners: we at Good Faith Media are always accepting book proposals. Our authors engage with an experienced team of editors, designers, and marketers to produce and sell books on a variety of topics. If you have a book proposal you'd like to run by us, head on over to goodfaithmedia.org/bookstore for more information. That's goodfaithmedia.org/bookstore. Bob, do you have a favorite episode from your book that you could tell us about?
A particular episode that stuck out in my mind, Jesus meets up with a very wonderful, intelligent Egyptian entrepreneur, businessman in the city of Sepphoris. Nobody ever heard of Sepphoris, but it was a major city. And the businessman is so intrigued with the young man Jesus that he invites Jesus to come and take over his huge business. And so Jesus' family is opposed to it, but he is deciding, I'm not going to do it. He starts out walking from Nazareth to Sepphoris, which is about a 5-mile walk in those days. And suddenly it's caught up in a storm. Out of nowhere, a withering storm occurs. And then as he is about to be blown away, he hears a voice through the storm saying, "Come here." And he looks through the storm and the rain and all, and he sees a cottage that he had never seen before by the side of the road. And there's a withered old woman inviting him to come in. And she invites him to come in, gave him something else to dry his clothes with. And then she says to him, "Young man, you must listen to the voices that are coming to you because you have a major calling in your life." And Jesus replied, "I can't do this. I can't leave my family. They need me too badly." And she says to him, "You must continue on this journey." And he did. And the whole ministry unfolds from that woman. And it's Anna, in the book of Luke, there's Anna, the prophetess. And she mysteriously appears in the midst of that storm to sort of reset Jesus' path from being the tecton, the carpenter in his family's really furniture shop, to this extraordinary calling that steadily unfolded. So it's that kind of dynamism that I see there. The book includes a lot of episodes that people will be familiar with, but maybe recast somewhat. The feeding of the 5,000 and walking on the water and all of those are there in my own imagination, but with a different take.
Our guest today on Good Faith Reads has been Bob Maddox, author of Jesus of Nazareth and the Kingdom of Weeds, in 2 volumes. The book, along with more than 100 other titles, is available as both a print book and ebook at goodfaithmedia.org/bookstore. Bob, we appreciate you being our guest today.
Thank you very much.